This episode comes from beautiful London, England. I get to sit down with an amazing individual who is Greece's first ever citizen to complete the Patagonia Ironman challenge, which, by the way, includes 3.8 kilometers of swimming, 180 kilometers of cycling, and 42 kilometers of running. Absolutely insane. We're going to talk about his stories, about the ups, the downs, how he got into this, and what are his next moves. So enjoy this episode of Invigorate Your Business coming from London, England, starting now.
You have to go through some tough periods. I call them dark days and dark periods in your life. And that's what I experienced. And triathlon was sort of my escape into this chaotic life I used to be in. And it started giving meaning to my life. And me getting on a bike and swimming, it felt just right. Me going back to drinking or doing anything that would get me back to that dark period, it was white and black, and it was obvious I had to follow that side. I'm there doing that for Greece, representing Greece. I wanted to show the world what does it mean to do something like that. But it was quite intense. It was a very challenging terrain, very technical. And beforehand, you have in between the bike, and it would rain for the first 60 to 70 kilometers. And I'm talking about serious rain.
My name is George Stroumboulis, and I'm extremely passionate about traveling the world, meeting new people, and learning about new businesses. Join me as I sit down with other entrepreneurs to learn about their journeys. This episode of Invigorate Your Business starts now.
We're going to start this. First of all, we're in London, England.
That's right.
Right. Your new town, your hometown.
Yeah.
You've been here. I'm excited to be here. It's such a cool city. Always rainy, but it's like a New York meets a Paris, right? And it's a cool vibe. So we're going to get into everything. So Themis Pollalis is a big deal in this whole triathlon, Ironman, Patagonia world, right? Like just extreme sport, right? And just pushing your bodies to the limit. We'll get into it, but you are Greece's first and only citizen to have ever done the Patagon Extreme Ironman.
So basically, I was up to this year.
Okay.
I was the very first that was selected through a ballot that takes place. There's quite a few, tickets that people would get.
Like a lottery?
Like a lottery.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was an honor to be one of the lucky ones to get this honor. I was the very first to ever participate, and I had the honor to be the very first one to finish. I had also the honor, and I feel grateful for motivating other Greek athletes. And a week ago, this past Sunday, it was the fourth edition of Patagonman.
Wow.
Where 3 Greeks actually participated. And I've been in contact with all of them, and they all completed. So the Greek flag was again up in Patagonia.
That's amazing.
So it was a very emotional moment.
That's a big deal. So we're going to put up the video as well and photos and everything so people could see.
Yeah.
And then for the listeners that aren't watching it on YouTube and here, we'll share the links as well in like Spotify so people could see. We're going to get into that. I have so many questions about how you got into this. Like, how can your body handle these extreme, conditions, right? But like, let's rewind. Where are you from and how did you end up here in London?
Okay. So I'm from a Greek island, EVIA. For people that they don't know, EVIA, it's the second largest island in Greece after Crete. Some people cannot even actually locate EVIA on the map because it's so connected to Athens mainland. Magical place, an hour away from the Athens airport. I'm 32 years old. I was born, grew up in EVIA, and at the age of 19, I decided I want to move to a more diverse place. And I had a few friends that used to live here. I used to come quite often. I had quite a few people that I knew. I knew that I had cousins, family living in Canada, like yourself, in New York and everything.
Exactly.
So I was always thinking, oh my God, I have people that they live overseas. So that was
Athens was too small for you, right? Like you wanted to do more.
Yeah. I wanted to be somewhere where I can connect with different like-minded people. And that's what made me, realize I want to move from that island, which I love and I loved.
Gorgeous island. For the listeners, like EVIA, Greece doesn't get enough credit, right? People always think of Greece for outside, and it's always like the popular Santorini and MYKONOS and Crete and Corfu, but like EVIA is still a hidden gem. You can drive there from Athens an hour, hour and a half, and it's still underdeveloped, right? Like that, there's so many resorts that need to go there and build it up, and like the beaches are beautiful. It's facing the Aegean. Like it's just such a beautiful, obviously I'm biased as well because my father's from there.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful island. So talk to me. You moved to London, you study, you've done various things. You're a real estate professional here selling, high-end properties, the rental market. Like it's just an insane market here. And your past is, you used to be in the yacht business as well, right? And high-end clients. So talk to us about that transition of being in the yacht space, right? And then how COVID affected that and how you pivoted.
Yeah. So I came when I was 19. I studied business and management, and then I started doing a master's in shipping. It's a dream of every Greek kid to do, any sort of studies in shipping. We have such a big industry. I realized shipping wasn't really the right path for me. So I skipped that, having done various jobs, getting into real estate initially. Then I had a strong connection with yachting. I grew up in EVIA, in a flat overlooking the harbor,
Gorgeous.
Where I live.
Yeah.
And I would see all these boats. So I would go down and talk to all these people. I'm like, where are you coming from? And they're like, oh, I come from Australia. And I'm like, how? They're like, on this boat. So it was fascinating to hear all this and meet all these people. And I made it clear to my head that instead of shipping, I'm going to do yachting.
Yep.
So in shipping, you have the cargo vessel and you transport any goods. And I'm like, I'll do the same with people. I have a vessel, which is a boat, a yacht, and I'll transport people that they enjoy having fun on board a beautiful boat. And that's what happened at the age of 25.
25, you started your own brokerage essentially, right? And your clientele was impressive. Obviously, you don't want to name names, but your clientele was like very wealthy, very successful, not just from Greece, from the UK, from around the world. Yeah. So just talk to us a bit about that and specifically like MYKONOS and what you were doing there.
I mean, obviously, it's a pretty fascinating world for many people. Just thinking that there's boats that they cost some crazy 6-digit numbers that you can rent and charter for a week. Oh, it's I don't do that anymore. I will discuss about this. But I was in MYKONOS, and I was the main point of contact for certain wealthy individuals, where they would call me. And they would need to charter a boat. And what I would do, they would fly over and they would choose a certain yacht that would communicate, will share presentations, etc. I would be there to inspect the boats and everything. And they would embark there. Okay. And then they would go off to explore the beauty of the Greek islands. There's so many. There's around 227 inhabited islands and over 4,000 uninhabited. So it's the best way to explore the beauty of those islands, idyllic islands,
absolutely,
on board a boat, a yacht. That's how it started. Did that for 5 years. Yes. Really
quick before we get to the COVID and how that affected it, like give us some ideas. Like we're talking massive yachts down to smaller ones. Yeah. But what are some of the craziest requests where you're like, I can't believe this person is paying this much for this? Like, what are some numbers that you've seen?
I had requests from an ultra wealthy family from Latin America. I can't name, but It was a family there that they requested a 5 cabin super yacht, and they had a budget of €1 million for 10 days.
$1 million for 10 days.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I was laughing because I thought it was a fake request.
Yeah.
But then I called the person I was communicating that charter, and he said, that's a real request. Please do not question my request again.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm like, okay, something like that does exist actually in this world.
Did you get that business?
I did.
Wow.
Yeah, I did. But it's complicated because I would work with other individuals that they are centrals of those boats, and they work with the main agents of the boat. So it's a whole process, like how to source the boat and everything, the yacht. I would say that was the biggest charter
That's
we
insane.
managed to do.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And really quick, just talking about like MYKONOS. What is MYKONOS to you? Obviously, when you're younger, partying there, but then from a business standpoint, you did a lot of business there from, luxury rentals and yachts and everything. What does MYKONOS mean to you?
MYKONOS is such a unique place. It's an island where you can explore everything. So it has that element of authenticity, serving any kind of request. So simple, authentic, white, dry Cyclades Island.
Yep.
At the same time, a place where every single jet setter, as we say, they would come to MYKONOS all over the world. For me, it's a combination of so many feelings and emotions. It's a place where you can go and detox. There's so many places where you can go and find an isolated beach and truly detox and connect with nature. And you can go on the north side of the island and you can see 20 super mega yachts mooring there. Hollywood stars partying on the other side. And then you go on the west side of the island and you're in a village next to a Greek local monastery, having dinner with your family in a very small family-owned taverna. So there is
contrast.
So much contrast.
Yeah.
And that can be quite fascinating, obviously, in such a small place, experience all these emotions and images. A unique place to be.
It's unique, yeah. I had a few American, one of them specifically, I'm like, how was it your first time? He went there with his wife. He brought a couple kids. And he's like, dude, I felt cheated. They were charging like hundreds of dollars per chair. And like, I'm like, okay, filter away from that. It's a destination. Like, what did you actually like the island? He goes, it was just overcrowded.
Yeah.
He went the beginning of August. So I've been reading that they're looking at limiting how many cruise ships can go there. And they're really trying to control, like other popular destinations around the world, where they're controlling how many people could go to San Marco or in Venice.
Yeah.
So I think that's good for the island. Like too much, too soon, like all at the same time could be negative, right? Is what I'm hearing.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I was there recently, this past summer, and I had the same discussion with some locals. They're like, it's obviously good for the island to have tourists, and they're very welcoming. I think you've experienced that, how hospitable they are. But it's overwhelming how many people they visit the island. It goes to an extreme number of visitors. So I've heard the same. I know that the locals, they've been trying to reduce the number of the tourists coming sometimes at the same time, and it can be very overwhelming for people that they want to experience more of a tranquility in the island.
Right. Go to another island then, right? If you need it.
There's so many islands.
Yeah.
There's Amorgos, there is Sifnos, there's Serifos, there's you name them. There's so many, and you go like 2.5 hours away, and you reach this island, and you're like, it's pretty much identical to MYKONOS, And instead of 200,000 people on it, it has 200.
Right. More attention on you. You get to do whatever you want.
And we go back to yachting and the beauty of yachting, that you can actually explore that. You can be one day, you can be there, experience all these crowds, and the contrast, as we said, and then you go to this small island and you're like, I'm here with 20 locals and having local food, which is beautiful.
It's like a different country within the country, right?
Exactly.
Just going around.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so COVID happens, you shift your focus more on real estate, right, here in London.
Exactly, yeah. So I was working in the past, before and in between, because obviously trying to sustain self-employment from such young age is not easy.
Yeah.
I'm Greek. I came here literally with nothing, and when I was facing any financial difficulties, I would be that individual where I would say, I need to do something else to support this business. Hence, I found beauty. They go hand in hand, yachting and real estate. COVID came and we felt the hit straight away.
Sure.
Travel agencies, they couldn't operate. Almost 95% of our charters, because I was working with certain individuals in Greece, they were cancelled. And that was a very, very crucial time in my life. There is no business. What do I do?
Yeah. So, obviously you pivot, successful career here in London. Let's talk about, so for the listeners, right, around the world, they know Ironman. They may have heard of Ironman, the watch Ironman, what it represents. But explain for the listener, what is Ironman?
Ironman is a philosophy. But if I need to say it in a few simple words, Ironman is a type of a triathlon race. It's a race that consists of three sports, three disciplines, as we say, and that's swim, bike, and run. So there's various distances, aside from a sprint, Olympic. You have Ironman 70.3, and then you have the Ironman distance, which is a 3.8 kilometer swim, or 2.2 mile swim for your listeners elsewhere that they use miles. 180k bike ride, and that's 112 miles on the bike, and then you finish this all like consecutive back to back with a marathon. So it's a 42.2 kilometers. Run 26.2 miles.
So that's these three disciplines back to back. You're swimming for 3.8 kilometers.
Yeah.
You get on a bike for 180 kilometers right after that. And then you finish off with a marathon of 42 kilometers back to back to back. Like, that's insane. So from the time you did your first full distance Ironman, rewind, when did you even think of starting that? How did you even get in there to mentally and physically prep for this? Like, how does someone even get to that point?
It's a process. We've discussed a bit off the record. You have to go through some tough periods. I call them dark days and dark periods in your life, and that's what I experienced. And triathlon was sort of my escape into this chaotic life I used to be in. And it started giving meaning to my life. Obviously, I didn't think about doing an Ironman 7.3 or an Ironman at all. I've started with a very simple sprint triathlon, which is an hour and a half race in some beautiful locations. The more I started using triathlon as my escape, the more I've started realizing it's a beautiful escape.
Okay.
You are in the water. We are water. We are, in the beautiful nature, and we're cycling our bikes, and we connect to that element of, we're cycling, and we've been doing this since we were 4 or 5 years old.
Right.
So it's quite of an element of remembering your youth as well. And then you're up and running using your legs, your heart, your brain, your eyes. You observe. And I realized that's not enough. an hour and a half is not enough.
Wow.
So I want to do more, to have more time there. So I've got into Olympic distance, which is a bit longer, and that's 2.5 hours. Then the faster I was getting, I would reduce that time. So the 2.5 hours became 2 hours and 15, 2 hours and 10, 2 hours and 7 minutes. And I'm like, I need to go a bit longer. And I found Ironman 70.3. So I realized you have to do baby steps, as we should always do in life, to reach that ultimate distance or whatever we want to achieve in our lives. Having done many Ironman 70.3s between 2009, 2020, even on my own training and doing certain Ironman 70.3s, I was getting that confidence. And having run many marathons and ultra marathons, it was the time where I said, that's still not enough. But I'm so aware of the beauty that I receive and the energy when I do that. And that was a very crucial decision where I've realized I want to do what you call an Ironman.
Okay, so that was the build-up. Really quick, by the way, this is water. It's not beer. That's it's canned water. If you,
right. I was about to ask you, actually. Thank you. Yeah, I don't really drink.
Yeah.
Although, on occasions, I have a biodynamic glass of wine, but that's it. But thank you for that.
Cheers, man. So this is just crazy. You touched upon quickly, you were in a dark space, right, at time, and you turned to this. So we all go through different cycles and phases, and a lot of times if someone's in a dark space, they can often resort to alcohol, drugs, some sort of addiction, something as an escape, right? Even though it's not fixing it. How did you turn to this? Like, how did you go from a dark place to, hey, this is my outlet versus something else?
That's a great question. It can be very complicated because the transition can be very challenging. There is such small gap between making the right decision, the right swift, to making what I think might be the right decision, right swift, and go back to the darkness. To make it more simple for our listeners here, I had reached the very bottom of my darkness, where I felt I was abusing myself. And there was no question with myself about what's the right way to do. And me getting on a bike and swimming, it felt just right. Me going back to drinking or doing anything that would get me back to that dark period, it was white and black, and it was obvious I had to follow that side. So that's what made me, make that decision. You have to reach the very bottom, I think, to see that there's only darkness there.
That's insane. So
I went a bit too dark.
No. This is exactly because nobody just wakes up, I think, on their own and says, hey, I want to push this to the limits. I want to jump in freezing water in Chile in a dark ocean, right, with waves, and I want to swim for 3.8 kilometers. And when I'm done, I'm going to get on my bike and ride it for 180 kilometers. And then I'm going to do, to me, that's just insane pushing the limits, right? Like I train with my little 8-year-old daughter 2 kilometers.
Which is amazing.
For her, it's amazing. For me, by the end of it, I want to vomit. And I know you got to train, but it's just incredible that you made that choice. So I'm curious, now during that period, when you made the choice to start doing this, were you getting satisfaction while you were in the process? And then when you weren't doing that, were you still fighting to stay out of that dark place? Or what's the mental? I'm just trying to understand.
That's another great question, actually. And I'm not just saying that. I can sort of, I feel like you empathize a lot with what I've been experiencing. I was experiencing. I was living in the moment while I was training, while I was racing. It's magical to swim. It might sound weird, but me swimming in the dark, jumping off a boat in the freezing cold, it makes me happy. Seeing those beautiful mountains in Patagonia, in Chile, it's magical. Cycling in the mountains of Switzerland, for me, it's something so therapeutic. But I still had that if I wouldn't be able to do that, I would feel I'm going back to that darkness. So in a way, I needed to have that boost. I needed to be on the bike. I needed to be in the lake. I needed to be up and running. It was my escape, because I felt if I don't do that, I would go back to that darkness. Which I'm grateful, because this mindset, this approach has shifted, and I don't feel it anymore for various reasons.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing to be able to do that. And then fast forward, what started as a hobby, right? Started as a hobby to help you physically. You're getting stronger. You're doing smaller races. Then you're doing the Ironman 7.3. What's the 7.3 stand for?
So 70.3 is 70.3 miles.
Okay.
It's basically the half distance of the Ironman, 140.6 as we say.
Okay.
And it stands for 1.9 kilometer swim, a 90K bike ride, and then a half marathon, 21.1. Still a pretty long distance.
Right. So that's what I mean. Okay. So you build up to the half Ironman, the full distance Ironman, you're doing marathons, you're doing all this, right? And you're getting stronger. And then talk to us, we talked about it in the beginning, but you represented Greece, right? There were articles in Vice, in Greek media, in newspapers, on the TV. Like, this was a big deal for a small country like Greece to have someone represent them at the ultimate, right? Patagon Ironman, right? Yeah. So just talk to me, just even about the press and the media. Did that freak you out in any way? Like almost too much pressure?
It did freak me out because again, we do know, we know each other, and you know that I do come from a humble background, and I don't really enjoy what we call publicity. I understood it was coming from a good side, a good space. And I wanted to give that message that I'm there doing that for Greece, representing Greece. I wanted to show the world what does it mean to do something like that. But it was quite intense. I remember I was in Patagonia, and I started getting some messages and calls from certain individuals, journalists, wonderful people, very kind, very authentic. And I remember the day before the race, I was at this TV show with Mr. Manasis, who is a very well-known presenter in Greece, over 20 years of experience. And it's 5 o'clock in the morning in Patagonia, and I'm racing in 17 hours.
Jeez.
And I'm shaking, and I'm in the middle of nowhere. I don't even have Wi-Fi there. And for an hour, I'm waiting. And I'm shaking, and I'm like, why am I doing this? And then I realized I do that because let me be the reason why some people would find some motivation in their lives, and let me be perhaps the reason, without being selfish here or having a big ego, that would motivate certain individuals to get out of where they are and run a kilometer or two, like you said, or get in a pool and swim, because we are capable of doing so many things with our bodies when we use them in line with our mind, a healthy mind and a healthy body. And our bodies are our temples. And I've realized it was the time to put it out there, but it did affect me because I didn't know how to manage that sort of publicity, if I can say, exposure to media.
And pressure. Now all of a sudden you have a country and people knowing that you're going to do this before you do it, where before you were doing it to challenge yourself. Yeah. Now you almost have this pressure, like, man, I got to do it now for them, and for it's a lot.
It is a lot, but I wasn't really thinking it up to the time where it became clear. Wow, there's so many people knowing that, I've been receiving so many messages with kindness and support and humility. But as you said, at the very beginning, I was doing it for myself. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, wow, I'm doing it for so many other people as well. And I'm like, I don't want to let down myself, and I don't want to let down those people either. And it can be a challenge when you want to make it for so many other people as well. You carry a certain burden, but I'm grateful that I managed to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So people understand, and I even understand. Let's talk about Patagonia, right? Yeah. This is like a worldwide known, right, Ironman challenge. It's the same distances as you would do a regular distance Ironman, but the conditions make it that much more extreme, right? Like from high altitudes, I think it goes up to 800.
Yeah, actually, I made even a mistake there. Because initially we're discussing, it was like, it's 800. It was actually roughly 1,200.
1,200 meters?
Meters.
Wow.
Yeah. I did actually say 800.
Okay.
But it was 1,200.
It was 1,200. The water's freezing.
The water is 9.5 degrees Celsius.
Yeah. Right. And then running uphill, downhill, everything.
Running was super challenging because we had to go through trails. So we're going up and down through this beautiful magical mountain, which is, if you're ever there, you should definitely visit that part of Patagonia in the world. We would look right and left and would see beauty and mountains covered in snow and so many wild animals. But it was a very challenging terrain, very technical.
Yeah. And
beforehand, you have in between the bike, and it would rain for the first 60 to 70 kilometers. And I'm talking about serious rain. I was not really well prepared about that kind of rain. So I didn't have any special rain jackets. I wasn't really prepared for such heavy rain. And then it stopped and I'm like, perfect. I'm pretty lucky now. And then 5 kilometers after that, all of a sudden, side winds and crosswinds up to 50 to 60 kilometers an hour. So that's what it means, extreme triathlon. Weather conditions that they can be so unpredictable.
Yeah.
And that's why up to last year, Patagonman was part of the Xtri World Tour, which is perhaps the 14 most challenging triathlons out there.
So sorry, the Patagonia one is part of Xtri World Tour? And there's 14 extreme.
Exactly, okay. Yeah. Up to last year, it was part of, they decided to follow their own individual path. But up to last year, it was part of the Xtri World Tour. And there is, if I'm not mistaken, there's 14 extreme triathlons. And I told you earlier today, I got a ballot, and I'm going to be doing this forthcoming September, in 2024, another one called Icon, and it's in Italy.
In Italy, okay.
Yeah.
So, and this is an extreme type triathlon as well.
Yeah, the most extreme in Italy, as they say. So we'll be doing another podcast next December here again.
Man, maybe we'll come and watch you part of the race. So do me a favor, walk us through, what does it look like from the minute you start this race? Like just logistically, I don't understand. I'm sure most of the listeners don't understand. Like, how does it even work? You wake up, what are you eating? Yeah. You get on a boat and then you jump in, and then when you're done swimming, what's waiting for you? Who's there? And then like just walk us through like a accelerated version of what this race looks like and the diet. Like, how do you go to the bathroom? Like, what if you need food? Like, how does that? I'm just confused.
That's a great question, obviously, because I guess so many people would think that. I'll start with that question. I haven't had the need to go to the bathroom yet, but if you do need to go to the bathroom and you're in these extreme locations, you have to use Mother Nature.
Okay.
So one is that people do carry actually tissues with them and baby wipes. It's just like being in the army.
Yep.
So let's start and take everything step by step. If it's a race that starts at 3 or 4 a.m., technically speaking, you can't really sleep. perhaps you can sleep for 2 or 3 hours, but that can be quite intense. You would try to have as much carbohydrate in you as possible the night before, because that's what you would need to get that energy that you need for the following day. Some of that will be stored as fat, and that what you would need for the following day. Combination of fat and carbohydrates. So I would wake up and I would have porridge with banana, cinnamon, and some tahini and chia seeds. So that would be a combination of good fat, carbohydrates, some potassium that we need, some anti-inflammatory from cinnamon, etc. A combination that would keep you going for the race to come.
How many calories are you consuming and burning? Like
throughout that race, you would burn around 10.5 to 11,000 calories.
Jeez. So what are you eating to make sure you have?
Yeah. So what you eat before you get into the boat, you will get maybe a banana or an energy bar. You will hydrate as well. You'll drink water, some electrolytes. Usually we drink carbohydrate electrolytes as well. So you make sure you get enough energy. At the same time, you're getting potassium and everything so you don't cramp or whatsoever. When you get off the bike, in those extreme triathlons, it doesn't work as Ironman. So you need to have your own support crew. So you have people waiting for you there. They would take your stuff. So you come out, you are removing your wetsuit. If it's too cold, you have to remove even your tri-suit that you were within. You have to get a new tri-suit, and you have to put any arm warmers, leg warmers, whatever it requires. On the bike, you have water, you have your carbohydrate electrolytes that you usually have potassium and sodium. That's crucial so you don't cramp and you balance that fatigue as well. And you have to make sure that every hour you consume a decent amount of carbohydrates. Depending on the intensity, I would say you have to aim for between 50 to 80, 90 grams of carbohydrates and a ratio of potassium and protein.
In the form of what? Like, what are you eating while you're moving?
Yeah, so I would have some oat and nut bars. So peanut butter, nuts, nut bars with apple and cinnamon and banana in that, and some honey. Usually I would bake them myself, or there is a very sustainable business I know, and I would get them from there. So they would have 50, 60 grams of carbs in there, and usually 230, 240 grams of calories, 230 calories. So I would aim to have 2 of those an hour, so 500 roughly an hour. And at the same time, I would consume maybe an energy gel that would give you another element of calorie intake. And then you have the carbohydrated electrolytes in a liquid form. So it's a combination of having something solid, a bar, maybe a banana, and you have to make sure you do that. The bike would last between 6 to 7 to 8 hours.
The biking alone. The swimming lasts how long?
Between an hour to an hour and a half.
Okay, and then you get off that. Do you rest at all?
No.
So then you're doing that. And then how long is the last portion? The marathon's another 5?
Yeah, it can be anything. I mean, you have some pro triathletes that they would do it in 3:45 or something. The average finish time for that type of marathon would be 6 hours, 6.5. I would do it between 4.5 to 5 hours. So that's another 5 hours where you have to make sure you're having those, calories in. So it's a combination of, making sure you don't skip any part of your food intake, calorie intake. And it has to be a combination of bars. They have to be rich in potassium and sodium. They're necessary for not cramping. And a decent amount of water, obviously.
Right.
So it's crucial. Otherwise, I don't think a human body can actually take such big challenge.
Such a challenge, yeah. So that's interesting to know. What's your least favorite of those three disciplines? Biking, swimming, running. Like, which one do you sit there and be like, not, or which one is your favorite out of the three?
I enjoy all of them. If I would have to choose, it would be very hard for me because every single sport plays its part and its role. So I do enjoy cycling a lot. I do enjoy being on my bike. It takes you to so many places and you get to spend so many hours and going from one place to another where you know that a car perhaps would go, and even the car, you're like, oh, it's too long. I'm going to skip it. It's 200 kilometers. Mm-hmm. Let's do it some other time. Or maybe do it in 2 or 3 days. And you get to do that with your bike and you actually experience all these feelings. You can smell when you pass a beautiful landscape, the flowers, there's horses there. There's so many that you can truly connect and bring together. So definitely I would say the bike, but the combination of all together, it's a very magical spiritual journey you embark.
So of the three, is there one that you do that you get to think more? Like for me, when I swim, it's like, don't drown, you keep going. I don't really get to think. Sometimes when I run a little, right, by no means on your levels, you could think like, all right, work or this or that. Like, is there one where your mind can escape? Or like, what do you do when you're swimming for an hour and a half or biking for 6 hours or running? Where's your mind during that whole race?
Yeah, basically I meditate. I see that hour in the water as a meditation process. So what I do, while I'm swimming, in order not to feel any fear or whatsoever, it's an element of removing your fear, but without being too aggressive. So what I would do in the swim, I might sit down and I might see all this darkness, and I might think, oh my God, is there any sea monsters or whatsoever? Right. So all these thoughts are coming to my head, and I'm thanking those thoughts, and I'm like, you know what, you're coming here for a reason, but I want to stay in the moment, enjoy that swim, and I just let it go. I don't follow that thought. And I try to stay in that moment, and it becomes a very beautiful journey in there. Same with the bike. I'm there, and it's a moment to reflect on so many things that are happening. You have 7 hours not to be distracted by anyone and anything.
No phones, nothing.
Like nothing. It's fascinating. You don't even have reception. You don't use your phone. You don't talk to anyone, and you do talk to yourself. And it's how you're gonna talk. Are you gonna be kind or are you gonna be harsh? Are you gonna be trying to make yourself try harder, or are you gonna show compassion? I choose the latter. So I would be kind to myself, and I would tell myself that I'm, very grateful for being able to do that, for being able to survive these past experiences, and I'm trying to, in a way, use all these beautiful images to create, because you become a very creative person when you're there. Having all these images, you're like, okay, let me put together all these images. What do I want to do in my life? So in a way, I'm making a life CV, a resume.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I want to track this person, and I want to be in that part of my life, in that job, in that working environment. I want to have these friends. So I'm actually creating that. And again, when you jump off the bike and you're, on your foot and you're running, you feel everything. You can listen to your heart, you breathe into your heartbeat, and you continue doing that again. And you have also the time to stop, to take a minute and to express gratitude, and to look back and to observe and to say, wow, I'm a blessed person for being able to be in this part of the world where it's so remote. Some people only know Patagonia because of the brand.
right, the jackets. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're pushing your body to the most extreme, and you're able to see like creativity, plan your future, that's insane. Have you ever, well, let me ask you this, from Patagonia, which was like your biggest, hardest race in your life, when did you have that epiphany where I'm going to get into triathlon? What was that year build up? Like, was it 5 years?
Yeah. You mean from when I started?
Yeah, I'm just trying to so if someone's listening, even myself, I'm like, hey, if I had a goal, because first of all, people should know you've always been athletic and physically fit. You didn't shed 200 pounds and then say, I'm going to do this. Like, you've always played soccer, been athletic, biking. Yeah. So you had that consistency, but that doesn't prepare you to go directly into triathlons and whatever, right? Like, I'm pretty fit, but I can't just step in and think I could do triathlons, right? So you built up to that. But from the time you said, hey, I'm in this dark place, I'm going to pursue this, until Patagonia, that was roughly a 5-year period?
There was a 5-year period, yeah. There was a 5-year period where I was getting more into triathlon, and I've said it almost became as a non-negotiated goal, where I'm like, I need and I want to make that dream come a reality. I want to do the toughest triathlon in the world, and I now understand it's not for everyone. Right. It's not an easy task. It's the same when people run and they do like a 5K run. Not many people would actually stand from that crowd of the 5-10K runners and they would say, I want to do a marathon. It takes quite a bit of awareness and an awakening to decide to do that, because it's about pushing yourself, pushing your limits, but understanding that there is no limits at the same time.
Right.
But you have to be very cautious and in a way careful, because if you decide to push your body too fast and your mind, you might burn out too quickly, and you might not even make it there, and that would bring the disappointment element, which is counterproductive. So it might end up taking you back to this dark period.
Right.
So I was trying to be very cautious. I'm like, I don't want to do something where I'm not really capable of doing. That's why I gave this 5 years gap. And I think it's the same with quite a few things in life, from being an employee. I work at this beautiful real estate company, as you said now. And I had to start by understanding the market, getting to know a few properties, getting to know a few homeowners, landlords, as we call them here, renting smaller apartments and then bigger ones. And then,
right.
I think in everything in life, you start with baby steps. And that's how I see triathlon. So if someone out there is watching now and they're like, okay, I'm going to do that next year, I would say, you know what, get to know triathlon, get to know your current limits, put a goal there, achieve that goal, tick the box, move to the next one, next one, and do the big one when you're, not when you feel ready, because you would never feel ready, when you know that you have enough miles in your legs and your heart to make that come a reality. To make that go,
that's great advice. Have you, out of any of the marathons or triathlons, anything, have you ever hit a point where you wanted to quit?
Yeah.
Did you ever just stop a race?
Never. No.
What motivates you? Do you do a lot of these races with friends and peers or is it just yourself saying you can't quit?
It's myself, yeah. And what I'm saying is, I've been through different mindsets and communications with myself, and there was certain periods where I was like, you shouldn't quit. If you quit, you are a failure, something which is, again, counterproductive for our mental health. I'm at this stage now where even when I'm hurting, I've realized that mental strength plays a big role in endurance and endurance competition. So you come into that stage where if you can, Eliud Kipchoge, one of the greatest marathon runners on earth, he said, if you can't control your mind will rule you. So I'm trying to control those emotions, and I'm like, okay, it's hurting. It's that time where I need to be the captain, the pilot of that vehicle. Because up to a certain point, maybe it was my mind doing all the work, but now I have to be the co-pilot perhaps, and make it happen. And that's when you understand the beauty of the suffering,
of the
pain, because you don't really suffer. It's a journey. It's a beautiful journey. Yeah, you're gonna feel the pain, but when you go beyond that pain and you reach that finish line, that's when you look back and you're like, wow, all I had to do is go that extra mile, or miles.
Or miles. So when you cross that finish line, how do you define success when you do triathlons? Is it finish or not finish, and it's as simple as that because you're only competing against yourself? Sure, there's people and times.
Yeah.
But when you run these, do you try to do personal records every time, or is it just if I finish it, that's success? Like, how do you measure that?
Yeah, that's a sort of a complicated discussion/question. I always say, by the time I'm there, it's a success for me. By the time I'm at the start line, it's a success because you have to go through so many struggles. It takes for, I know marathon runners that it would take them so long to train and to go that distance.
Right.
When you have trained for so long and you manage to go there, that's a beautiful feeling. I'm here, I'm there, I feel ready. By the time you embark that journey, you are understanding that I've trained so hard, there is no discussion if I'm going to finish it or not. And then it becomes almost a competition with yourself, perhaps, because you're like, okay, I've done all this hard work. I know my capabilities. I don't want to compete against anyone, but at the same time, I know I'm fast enough to be faster than the average finishers.
Right.
So I'm trying to have a healthy competition in me. And yeah, I do check sometimes and I'm like, oh my God, I came at the top 5% of this race. Wow. But for me, the most important thing is to make sure I've enjoyed every single part of the race. I was extremely ethical. So no matter what happened in the race, I was there for someone who needed me. So if I see someone suffering, I would pass by and I would be like, do you need help? How do you feel? Like, I will try to connect. And that's the beauty of those sports.
Right.
It allows you to give you that moment. Now you say that perhaps to marathon runners. My girlfriend runs marathons and I don't think they would say, yeah, I have a minute to talk, because they focus, they have a goal, they have to finish that race in a certain time. The beauty of those races is that you have that time to skip that minute. But to answer your question, success for me means I've raced a very challenging race. I made it happen. I completed. I came here healthy. And based on my capabilities, I made this course in a certain time. And in a way, I knew I would come ahead of some people or behind some people because that's my speed. So I wouldn't let my position nowadays
take away
the success element. It's always there, though. It's always there. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking earlier about this. I never did cross country growing up, right? We did some track, whatever, at school. But
nice.
My daughter, who's 8 years old, Demi, last week and the week before, she made it to the nationals that we were talking about. for 2 kilometers, and she does it in about 9 minutes. That's her thing.
Oh, wow.
Right. And she made her state, top 25 in the state. Then she went to regionals, and then she made it to nationals. And we're like, and she just started 4 months ago, but she's aggressive and good girl. So she's like, can we go to the nationals? I'm like, let's see what this is about. So we go to Tallahassee, Florida, and then we did Louisville, Kentucky. And we're talking hundreds of kids from every state in the United States. Big country. And you said before the mental thing. She can run her 2K. She physically can do it. She can finish it. No problem. She does it all the time. She gets to the race. There's hundreds of racers spread and thousands of parents and friends and family cheering and yelling. And both races, 30 minutes before the race, she starts crying. She wants to vomit. She has to go to the bathroom. And like the nerves just got over her. And I didn't know how to parent through her or coach her.
Yeah.
Right? Like my gut was like, it was a son, I'd be like, just stop being a baby, get over it. But I'm like, she's a delicate girl.
Yeah.
So I'm like, honey, what are we going through? And it was so tough. And she's like crying. And I'm trying to calm her down up until like she started the race crying. And I'm like, honey, you're wasting your energy doing this. And then when she'd finished the race, I'm like, you did it. Like you didn't die. Nobody tried to hurt you. Like, so it was just interesting seeing an 8-year-old struggle to figure it out. And she plays competitive sports. And she said after the first race, she's like, she's never felt those nerves lining up, even though she knows she's only racing herself, right? Like I told her, you're only racing, who cares about these other kids, right?
Yeah.
And it was so cool seeing that dynamic. And just like you said it before, yeah, you need the physical, you need the training, you need the food. But if the mental's not there, like it kind of with anything in life.
Exactly. First of all, well done for your daughter. That's some serious times as well there.
She's for
her age. There's times that adults do actually.
Right.
Yeah.
By the way, the winner of that race, the number one in all the country, 7 minutes, 25 seconds for 2 kilometers. Yeah. Just
that's
insane. Insane.
Yeah. But I can empathize a lot with her feelings, because we as adults, we get on that, start line, and there is all these emotions that control you at this moment before you start, because you know what you're about to embark, and you have all these people there doing the same thing, and it's nerve-cracking, and you have all these people being so anxious, so stressed and everything. So even if you have X percentage of anxiety in your stress,
right,
what you receive during that period is quite intense. And I think for an 8-year-old, it can be quite overwhelming.
Yeah, maybe too much.
It can be too much.
Of course.
Yeah. And I guess that there's like all these people, looking at all these spectators and fans. And then obviously an 8-year-old had the pressure of expectation from perhaps not you, because you might be a very compassionate father and everything, but there is hundreds of people watching at the same time. It's the nationals, right? Yeah.
TV crews, drones, music, it's overwhelming.
It is overwhelming. Yeah. And it's another element. It's an individual sport, as you said. It's just you. When you're in the team, I played soccer, what we call European football here, and you're always part of a team of 11.
Yep.
So you can be invisible if you want.
You blend in the stress. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The ball is at the very front. You're not worried if you're at the center back.
Yep.
The back is back. You can hide if you're the center forward. There's always time for you to relax. Mm-hmm. There, it's only you.
It's only you.
And I've been in a couple of races where there is media and there is drones or anything, and I'm like, oh my god, it gets quite overwhelming. Yeah. And I don't know how I would feel if I would be an 8-year-old. So to be an 8-year-old, to have those experiences, yet do such times, wow.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you. And I told her, even while she was crying and she had to go line up, I'm like, the fact that you're here and I didn't force you, you begged me to do this. You should be so proud of yourself.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't do that. I never did that at 8 years old. Right. So, and then a couple days after, and then I had to fly to London, but I just saw another level of confidence in her when it was like homework and she was sassy. And I'm like, that's what it is, man. Like just build up. Yeah. Great conversation. I want to talk a little bit about the marathon. Yeah. Not the Athens marathon. We need to stop calling it the Athens marathon. It just needs to be the marathon, right? So there's a Greek, Peter Economides, South African, lives in Greece. He's the branding guru of Greece, right? And he went viral over a decade ago talking about how, just Greece needs to rebrand itself. And in one of his presentations, shout out to Peter Economides, he was talking about, you have the Boston Marathon, the New York Marathon, the London Marathon, and they call it the Athens Marathon. He's like, we need to drop the Athens Marathon. Like, that's the original, it's the marathon, right?
Yeah.
So it's such a symbolic marathon. You ran it a couple months ago, right? After you do triathlons in extreme, like the marathons are just easy, right? Like for someone like you. But talk to us about the significance, the history of a marathon, like how it started. I think it's good for listeners to know, like, what does marathon mean? What's the history of it?
I can fully agree with you. As a Greek and as a person who understands the origin and knows the origin of the marathon, marathons are extremely tough. By the way, I think...
sorry, I downplayed it.
You downplayed it. Yeah, I think some of my friends, my partner, they might hear that and now they might be watching and say, no, you don't know what we're experiencing. So I empathize with her. And I can agree with Peter. It has to be called the original. Now we have it branded it as Athens Marathon, the authentic. So we're trying to basically prove something that has been proven 2,500 years ago.
Exactly.
I'll keep it very short. It's a place, it's a town in Greece, near Athens. It's basically 42 kilometers away from Athens. What happened there? It was a very historic battle, the Battle of Marathon. And it happened in 490 before Christ during the Greco-Persian Wars. 490 before Christ, the Persian Empire is about to invade Greece, and the Greek day messengers, including Phidippides, they were the people that they would patrol the coast of Greece. So they were the Himerodromi, day messengers. So they would run and they would deliver the news. So there is someone coming to attack. It's the Persian Empire. That's great. They sent a messenger to Sparta to seek for help. And because of the oracle, they couldn't get the help. And they had to go and fight themselves. So they created the biggest army the Athenian army ever had. And they went with General Miltiades to fight in Athens, in Marathon. And that battle was so crucial. It was a victorious battle for Greece, but for humanity as well. And I would clarify why. Miltiades turned to his most loyal and faithful messenger, Phidippides, and he said, run back to the Athenians and deliver the news. We have won. We're victorious. So he ran from Marathon all the way to Athens, according to the historians and the myths. But I do tend to believe that's exactly what happened. He was wounded. By the time he reached Athens and he entered, he said, Niki, which is Niki, victory, hence the Nike symbol. Yep. And he said, Nenikikamen, which is a past tense, we're victorious.
Yep.
And he collapsed there and he died.
Powerful story.
It's powerful. And why I'm actually saying it's crucial for and so important for humanity, basically that distance was around 40 kilometers, hence the marathon.
Yep.
Marathon to Athens, sorry. The years passed, I think they've extended the distance for a bit. But that's the very original, the actual one. If it wouldn't be for that messenger, if it wouldn't be for that marathon, potentially there wouldn't be any ancient Athens. Potentially there wouldn't be any ancient Greece. And chronologically, if we see it, 490 before Christ, that takes place, we have the greatest philosophers of all time, in my opinion, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, coming later on, after a few hundred years, the battle. And that's crucial, because if it wouldn't be of that marathon, of that messenger, we wouldn't have any Plato, any Socrates, any Aristotle, and perhaps we wouldn't have what we have now, democracy.
Yeah, chain reaction.
Yeah. Exactly. Anyway, it was quite a long explanation, but I can truly empathize. So I did that for the third time. It was a very emotional run. And I invite everyone who runs marathons, obviously never stop running marathons all over the world. That's the beauty of connecting people together. I'm in New York City Marathon. Wow. Everyone that gets together used to live in New York.
Yeah.
It's amazing, right?
I used to go and watch Columbus Circle where they would finish. And I was always hungover, and I'd go watch these people. Next year, I'm going to do this. Next year, I'm going to do this. And then I would be the hater on the sidelines, because you would see like heavier people finishing the sideline. I'm like, I could do it, as I'm drinking like my coffee to sober up. No, it's remarkable. And I feel like everyone should try to do one in their lifetime, right? Or train for it. But it's not easy, man. It's not an easy, like doing marathons.
It's not easy, but I think to understand certain parts of your limits, and to bring your body and your mind to a certain limit, I think we should all try to race a marathon. I think every human being on this earth is capable of running a marathon, and it's all about understanding and bringing that awareness that we set the limits. And by the time we understand our body, we can do magical things. And we don't need to go and run sub 3 hours, or, that's why there is, 4 hours marathon runs, 5, 6, 7 hours. But I wanted to go back to my previous message. There's the New York Marathon, Boston Marathon, as you said, all these beautiful marathons. People get together, they celebrate. It's a beautiful day. No one is fighting with each other. They all get together. It's a celebration of life. But to be able to run that marathon, the marathon, from Marathon to Athens, and enter the stadium that hosted the very first Olympics. Yeah. You've been there. Yeah. The Panathinaikos Stadium, the stadium that hosted the very first Olympics in 1896. Yeah. A stadium that has been there since the 4th century before Christ. It's an amazing feeling entering that stadium.
Yeah, powerful.
It's powerful.
Yeah. I am not speaking from experience, but when I see it, and like just the pride and the people, and then you see people from around the world wanting to go there and run the original marathon, like it's magical. This has been an incredible conversation. In our next chats, we're going to talk about intermittent fasting, cold plunging, the body and how miraculous it is. But to close up, can you tell us about any future plans you have, business-wise, ideas that you could share? Maybe it's too premature, but is there anything that you want to share with the listeners?
If this next year, coming to 2024, I have quite a few plans racing-wise. So I would start with a marathon. Early spring. I have a race in my head, which might be an 100 miles ultra trail, as we call it. So it's 160 kilometers continuous run that you have a 48 hours set to complete it. I'm going to be going to Italy to do the Icon, the extreme triathlon. I'll share all this with you. I do have a business idea. I want to do a cycling tour event. It's still in the process, in the making, as we say. So what I want to do, I want to bring people from any sort of background into the island of EVIA, and I want to show them where I grew up and what this beautiful island can offer. There's been an article on cyclist.co, which is a very well-known magazine, and they said EVIA is Mallorca without the crowds. Uh-huh. And that's quite fascinating, because Mallorca is a mecca for cycling. And I've experienced that in EVIA. And I want to do 5 or 6 days of pure cycling with a unique authentic Greek hospitality where people can come, they can get a welcome package with Greek honey, chamomile, dry figs.
Amazing.
Pastelli, our favorite.
Yes.
The very source of...
I love pastelli.
It was one of
the...
Ancient,
right? It was their ancient energy bar.
Exactly.
Right? Absolute simple sesame and honey. Magical.
And we have it everywhere, but yet we don't even pay attention.
Take it for granted. Yeah.
A very beautiful welcome package, a nice cycling hat and everything, something very, Greek.
Yeah.
And, beautiful bike rides. EVIA combines mountains and sea. So I want to show the world and those people, the beauty of, the diversity of the beauty of the island. And the good food.
Absolutely.
Maybe we might include a visit to Delphi.
Magical.
And I mean, of course, what kind of food you can experience there. And maybe we can finish the day with, some Greek traditional dances and passing some Greek plates.
To have someone who has this experience that can offer that culturally in a tour, people will be lining up. Right, like to get that experience, like it's such a unique experience.
Yeah, hopefully.
I wish you continued success, man.
Thank you.
I'm so glad we got to sit down and do this.
Thank you, George. I'm very honored to have this time with you here. Thank you for the invitation. And I wouldn't usually do and share this, but man, you have such good energy, and I feel so easy with you. So it's a mutual respect here. So thank you so much for that.
I appreciate that, and it's a mutual feeling, man.
Thank you.
Love you, brother.
Love you too.
Love you, man.
Love you too.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Invigorate Your Business with George Stroumboulis. Please hit the subscribe and like buttons and follow me on all the main podcast streaming channels. Also, please share your comments when you can. I appreciate your help in expanding this network to a worldwide audience. Until next time, stay invigorated.